Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. How are you doing all? I hope you are doing well, staying healthy, enjoying life and must be planning to improve your life. Here we are to do so. Here daily we read a chapter of a novel to develop reading habit to improve our English, including reading, writing, listening, speaking, vocabulary at the same time enhancing our knowledge. As we know, reading is the best practice to do all these things, which help us in many ways. Reading could be one of the good hobby to make a change in ourselves for a lifelong. As we have heard from many prominent personalities that books change their life, add values, widen their knowledge. We can live their life by reading a book and get all those experience and learn from their mistake. So why to commit same mistake if we can learn from books and improve our life? So join me in this journey to become best version of ourselves. Before starting, I would love to hear your thought in comment section. Remember to share with your loved one to change their life as well. And don't forget to subscribe my channel. Press the bell icon for daily updates. Today we are going to continue where we have left yesterday. We were reading a chapter that was a dark day. But when we read that chapter, so we didn't get anything strange that we could say that it was a dark day. So today we are going to read more and see that why it author told that it was one dark day, because till now we didn't get any unusual thing. So we will read that what happened next when he was returning from cinema hall and he met a old man and he was chatting with him. So what happened next that he had to say that one bad day. So let's read and see what is there. Okay, so we will read and see what we can get.
Come to our home tonight. There is a kid of your age in my house too. You can play with him. And my house is close to yours, he offered politely. No, no, uncle, I have to go back to my home, I excused myself. You know, I have gifted him a video game. It's called Mario. Have you ever played it? He persisted, and then pushed me back to stretch himself to the window in order to spit. The name of the video game made me very curious. I had heard about it from a few of my classmates. I had even asked my father to buy me one, but he had refused, saying it was too expensive, as usual. Where is your house, uncle? I asked the moment he settled back in his place. Quite close to yours, I can drop you back to your house. You want to come? He asked, looking straight into my eyes. No, uncle. I have my history exam tomorrow, I said sadly. Oh, poor boy, he said. Then he put his hand over my shoulder and started rubbing the back of my neck. I felt a little awkward. Where did you meet my father? I asked him. He rolled his eyes and then said, Beta, I met him at his office. Now, that was odd. My father had never worked at an office. I clarified, but mere daddy to office mein kaam nahi kaati. He is a priest at the Gurudwara. Oh, no, no, he immediately corrected himself. I meant, I met him at my office. He'd come for some work. He is a good friend of mine. I noticed that he stammered when he said that. My brain registered something suspicious, but I didn't do anything about it. As he was talking to me, he slid his hand down my shirt and rubbed his palm against my back. I felt uncomfortable and looked back at him, wondering, what was he up to? I immediately tried to grab his hand and was about to ask him to stop, when, all of a sudden, he clutched me tightly. I couldn't move, not a single inch. His eyes widened as he stared at me. I was shit scared. I froze. I was unable to understand what he was doing to me. My head was still. Only my eyes moved. It was dark outside the bus and it was dark inside it. Without any other passenger left, there was no one who could see us. The sound of the bus and the engine had muffled every other sound. The moment I felt his other hand on my cheek, I knew I was in trouble. I looked at him. He could probably sense the fear deep down in my eyes. When I didn't move for a while and kept staring back, the anger on his face transformed into a wicked smile. His face looked very animal-like. His mouth was all red. His teeth were soiled black. Inside his dirty mouth was his red-black tongue, and the sight of it made me shut my eyes in horror. For the next few minutes, I was his toy. He rolled his finger around my face. Some kind of petrify ing fear didn't let me revolt. I was scared of shouting. I thought, even if I shouted, the conductor was too far away to hear me. And even if he heard me, that old man would have done something to me before he arrived. He could have hit me or choked me to death. I was not in a position to think what exactly he would have done to me. I felt vulnerable and helpless. My fear had surged to such a level that I wasn't even able to pray to God. The old man slipped his fingers inside my shirt's collar and ran them across my neck. My body shivered under his hands. I felt suffocated. My mind was losing its grip. I felt my heart beating really fast. In panic, the visuals flashed behind my closed eyes of the dark movie theater, of villains in the movie. I imagined his rough hands as they touched my body. Then I imagined how the villains had killed the two heroes in the first half of the movie. They must have felt just as helpless as me. I panted. I was running out of breath and my fear was reflected in my pleas to the man. Please, please. Mat karo, uncle. Don't do this, uncle, please. I thought of my mother the same way as I had done on the first day of school. I wanted to run to the safety of her embrace. I thought of my father. I wanted him to beat up this old man. The faces of my parents raced through my mind. In a strange way, they gave me strength. And, therefore, I kept thinking hard about them. As the minutes passed, I came to some sort of terms with what was happening. I knew I had to open my eyes, if not right at that moment, then eventually. Just then, I felt the old man's thumb on my lips. He rubbed my lower lip, and I was overpowered by a strong aroma of pan. His face must have been close to mine, very close. I felt he was going to do something ugly with me. I struggled to open my eyes. Something within me was changing. It must have been my fear, turning into anger. I started taking deep breaths now. I realized that every moment I was turning optimistic. I was secretly telling myself that this had to end and I needed to be strong, because my parents wanted me to be strong. And then, a strange thing happened. The visuals in my mind changed. Scenes from the second half of the movie came flooding into my mind. The heroes whom the villain had killed in the first half had come back to life. They fought back and killed the villain. I, too, wanted to fight back and kill my villain. The old man had just moved his hand to my pants when I opened my eyes. The fear in them had been replaced with anger. I screamed and, in no time, pulled out the pen from my pocket, removed the cap and stabbed him on his head with it. I narrowly missed his eye. The nib of the pen made a forceful contact with his face, close to the ear. He lost his grip over me and almost slid down from his seat. He leapt to grab the seat in front in awe. there to stop himself from falling down. He was taken aback by my rebellion. He obviously hadn't expected me to do what I had done. For me, there was no looking back. Some kind of madness had taken over my head. I continued to scream. With every scream, the spit from my mouth spilled out onto my lips and my chin. I was breathing heavily again. I attempted to hit him again, but he held my hands in his large palms. Then he covered my mouth tightly with his other palm and pulled me into his lap. He was obviously experienced at this game, because he had managed to overpower me. Nevertheless, I kept struggling hard to release myself from his grip. I even tried to bite his hand. That was my last resort. He managed to evade that as well. Soon, I felt drained of all my strength. I lay back, completely spent. But my eyes were wide open and there was still hope in them. Right then I heard a voice that revived me further. Ye kya kar rahe ho? What are you doing? Someone shouted. I looked ahead in the distance. It was the conductor. He leapt up on the old man and pulled him away from me. He snatched me out of his grip. At the same time, he shouted at the driver to stop the bus and turn on all the lights. The bus came to a dead stop as the driver applied the brakes, and the three of us were propelled ahead. The conductor held my shoulder against the thrust. The alarmed old man grabbed the roof bar for support. This time, I finally saw fear in his eyes. And there was anger in mine. The driver came running to the back of the bus, unaware of what was happening. The conductor shouted at the old man and asked him to get out of the bus. The old man attempted to explain that I was like his grandchild, and that he was only showing his affection towards me. He said that that's why he'd paid for my ticket as well. He cunningly tried to take this matter up with the driver, who was unaware of what had followed, but not with the conductor. So the conductor cut him short and asked him to leave. All this while, I kept looking at that man in rage. When he stepped out through the front door of the bus, I slipped my hand into my pocket. I looked at him as he walked back alongside the bus. When he was close to the rear of the bus, where I sat, I took my hand out of the window and dropped a 2 rupee note into the street, the ticket fare that he had paid for me. He looked at me. I shut the window pane in response and looked away. The conductor was still holding on to my shoulder. I hadn't realized it, but I was shaking. The driver started the bus. The conductor asked me a few questions, most of which I responded with a simple yes or no. He asked me not to worry and that he was there for me. I heard and unheard it. Inside, I was feeling a surge of emotions. As time passed by, I realized the anger within me was transforming into a sense of guilt and sorrow. It didn't matter if I should have felt that way or not, but I wasn't able to avoid it. I looked at my watch. It was 7:45 p.m. when the bus finally stopped at the Burla bus stand. I got down and started walking towards my home. It was only when I was away from the crowd and the noise of the busy bus stand, and on the silent road to my house, that I realized I had been crying. I allowed myself to cry hard. I continued to walk, and the silent tears continued to roll down my cheeks. Through my wet eyelashes, the yellow light of the vehicles approaching me glittered. A lump kept forming in my throat and, time and again, I swallowed it. I tried to console myself. I tried to tell myself that the old man had just touched me here and there, and nothing else had happened that I should cry for. I tried to pacify my rage with the thought that I had taken my revenge by hitting him hard on his face with my pen. But, for some reason, my own reasons felt unreasonable to me. I walked silently along the quiet road with my school bag slung on my shoulder, a half full water bottle in my hand, and 1,000 thoughts running through my mind. Every step I took towards home increased my worry. I was about to reach home. I wondered what I would tell my mother. How would I tell her about what had happened? It was all so disturbing. At the same time, I was scared. What if that old man had taken the next bus and was following me right now? What if he was hiding in that dark patch on the street approaching my house, ready to pounce? I looked back in distress. He wasn't there. I looked here and there. He was nowhere. But he was right there in my mind. The odor of his body and the smell of his palm were there in my numbers. Trills. I wanted to throw him out of my mind. I wanted to run away from his smell. I wanted to undo all that had happened. I wanted to clean myself and wash my body, my back, my face, everywhere he had touched me. Struggling with my fears, I managed to reach home. The moment I opened the door of my house, my father started shouting at me, Kite siga inni der tak. Where were you for so long? His anger startled me. I was not in a position to handle it. I avoided looking at him and walked towards my mother, saying, I had called Rami uncle to tell you that I will be late. My father grabbed my hand and stopped me. But too late ho you. But why did you get this late? Picture dekan chala gaya sai, I replied softly, looking down and waiting for him to slap me. Mom quickly pulled me towards her and caressed my head. She kneeled down and looked into my eyes. Kite rah gaya sai. Tu thi hai. Bhookta nahi lagi. Where had you been? Are you all right? Are you hungry? Dad continued to shout at me. I looked at Mom. I wanted to hug her and tell her everything that had happened to me. I wanted to tell her how safe I felt when I was this close to her. But not a single word came out of my mouth. I simply kept looking at her till she took me in her arms and caressed my back. I went numb and my eyelashes were moist again. Mom asked me why I was crying. I told her, instead, how the exam had got cancelled. Mommy, exam cancel ho gaya sai. So we went for a movie and I got late. But what is there to cry in this? She asked. Bahut bhook lagi hai. Daddy gussa ho rahe hai. I am very hungry. Daddy is so upset with me, I murmured, and held back the real reason. Mom wanted me to promise her that I would never be late in coming home ever again. In my mind, I recalled the horrible evening when I was making that promise. That night, I slept badly. I woke up several times and kept tossing and turning in my bed. That old man and my experience in the bus took the shape of multiple bad dreams in the night. I remained disturbed even when I got up in the morning. As a result, I screwed up my history exam. The only date and event I remembered was what had happened the previous day. I just about managed to pass the exam. But the impression it left stayed with me for longer than that. Now I was scared to get onto a bus, something that I had to do twice every day. I became paranoid. Every time I stepped into a bus, I would make sure that I didn't see that devil's face again among the passengers. As time passed by and I grew older, my memories of that day started fading. Thankfully, I never met that old man again in my life.